Hello and welcome to Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. I'm your host, a GP, a John Paz. Of course, joining me the star of the show, the former WCW and ECW World Tag Team Champion, the mind and booker behind the 83 weeks of dominance for WCW, the man that is the brainchild of the NWO. He is the games master, the taskmaster, the devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing excellent. Do you see the sweatshirt?
Yeah, what's going on? I see you wearing White Sox hat and stuff. What's
Bill
going on?
Bill Torborg was the strength coach for the Chicago White Sox.
Yes.
I saw him and his lovely wife Asia last weekend. Dale gave me this great guy, great talent.
What
I
is
knew
he
her.
up to?
What?
What is he up to?
He's still the strength coach for the White Sox.
Wow, after all these years, crazy. And you knew
Yeah.
her before wrestling?
Yeah, I knew her when she was a bodybuilder. We used to train at the same gym.
Are you the one that brought her to WCW?
No, Nash did.
Interesting. What about like his relationship with her? Was that before WCW, during WCW, when they got married?
I actually introduced them.
Whoa, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at you, matchmaker. What is he up to though? Like as far as wrestling, nothing.
He does a bunch of signings. I mean, he's a big guy. You don't realize how big he is until you get next to him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you know, until Veritek came along, his father caught the most no hitters in the history of baseball.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and super guy, just super guy. She's a lovely person too. I mean, they have a beautiful home out in, believe it or not, it's in the country right outside of Daytona. When I say right outside, it's up in Ormond Beach, about 20 minutes. But her and her daughter are professional rodeo uh, barrel racers.
Wow. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah,
Damn. That's
yeah,
weird. Huh.
yeah, yeah,
Bodybuilding, rodeo. Where does
yeah.
that come together?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but she was. I mean, they and he showed me, some pictures of their horses. Beautiful, beautiful animals.
How did he get into WCW? Were you responsible for that as well?
No, no, he came in. I don't know how he came to the power plant. I mean, obviously a very good athlete. You know, played minor league ball in the highest level. I don't know how his contact was to get to the power plant. I think it was through Paul Orndorff. And that he must have known Paul through the gym. And that he came in and he had a strange gimmick at first. He was like a NASCAR driver. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
And they, eventually made him the demon, if you will, the
yeah,
the kiss demon.
yeah. He did well with that.
Did you like that gimmick though? I mean, because I don't know, it could be good, but then in another instance, it could be cheesy. Like when Russo came in, he kind of made it more. I don't know. It was very, I don't know, just too gimmicky, too cartoony, too cheesy. But what did you think about that gimmick?
Well, they were trying to use Kiss. They paid them a shitload of money for that one song they did. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yep.
But they were getting some kind of rub off of Kiss too, and it was money. Now, I don't know where they were going, and I never saw a contract, and people can debate what was going on. Nobody knew. I don't give a shit who says, well, they knew. you're not going to find out a contract written from the entertainment end of Turner. So they were making money off of it for some way. And Dale, it would have been a great gimmick for Dale if they got behind it, because he could have carried that off. You know what I mean? They could have made him a very, very. Do you remember Dark Shadows, the original?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you remember Barnabas Collins? Because there was like portals, past, present, and future.
Yep.
And when he played the heel part, it was really cool, I thought. And I thought Dale could have done that easily. That's a talent that was overlooked. I think Dale could have been a big star.
I remember they had a tag team, him and Chad Fortune, when when they were kind of fixing what they were doing, the pit crew, which is obviously
Right.
the NASCAR thing. It's like, all right, that's kind of corny. It's not really going to work. Obviously, they tried WWF with Spark Plug Bob Holly, Thurman Sparky Plug Bob Holly. Didn't work there either. It's just that's kind of cheesy. Then remember for a few weeks he was the MVP, which is his
Yeah.
old gimmick from like AWF, where he's doing like the baseball thing, which obviously plays in. I think he actually was on the Marlins, or almost made the Marlins, Dale Torborg. So
I think he was up for a cup of coffee, and his dad was the coach,
right, yep,
manager.
manager, yep.
So
Yep.
he was a manager, yeah. And yeah, I think he could have been a big star. And when you mentioned that, that was the era where everybody was trying to do some kind of occupational gimmick. You know what I mean? The
Yes.
repo man, the IRS man, the lumberjack, whatever. It was so ridiculous.
You need a plumber. They had TL Hopper. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
that was nuts.
Yeah, and they had Dusty, doing that. That was so ridiculous, having Dusty doing that. That was a revenge shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. With Torborg, like doing the demon thing. Obviously, Brian Adams was the original demon. What happened with that?
I have no idea. I don't know. Was Brian? Was that just a very short time?
Yeah, literally, when it first came out, he was the first person to play the demon when they were playing the song, and he came out of like the tomb or the casket, if you will, and he kind of came out of it, and he was playing the gimmick, and then all of a sudden I think he got injured, and then they went to Dale Torborg, and he was the demon for the rest of his duration.
Well, that was probably what happened. He got injured, and they had to move on.
When you look at Dale Torborg and his time in the business, do you think that he could have done more, or did he want to do more?
Well, I definitely think he could have done more. I mean, he's an athlete. Yeah, he had a good body. He was very, he's about 6'4", 6'5", and was in shape. He very intelligent guy. Took to the business really well, and athletic. So he had a lot over a lot of people being athletic. JP, I don't have to tell you, the hardest thing in the world is to hit a baseball. If you have that hand and eye coordination, you're going to step above anybody else not.
It's just crazy to think, like, wow, like, let's give this huge guy who has an awesome look, let's give him all these weird gimmicks and it not to be successful and it not to work, and then he's out of the business. I know baseball is probably his true love, but it's like, wow, they kind of drove a huge guy with a cool look out of the business almost.
Yeah, and there was a lot of collateral damage back then, right?
Big time. Yep.
Yeah.
Like, the rumor was he could have technically went to WWF after WWF bought WCW. I know he was with Vampiro and ICP. They were doing the Dark Carnival thing in WCW before that, but it was almost like, oh, well, could he go to WWF? And then he's like, nah, I'd rather just go back to baseball and do that. He did a little bit for the XWF stuff in Florida, but I mean, it was really one of the things where I guess he was just done with it.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he's a successful guy. I think he got a great family. Lives in a nice area. Got horses. Lives right by the sea. So I mean, and I'm sure that he can pick and choose what he wants to do for the Chicago White Sox organization, and I'm sure that he can reach out to Kiss and do something, whatever he wants.
When you look at that too, with the Demon coming in and Kiss and that other stuff, was it doomed because Bischoff is the one that was spearheading it, and then when Bischoff's gone, you notice like the Demon will lose to Terry Funk. I mean, he'll just like take a bunch of losses and stuff. You think that was the brainchild of Bischoff and where he wanted the direction to go, and that's why it kind of got killed off and it didn't really get the push it deserved, or does that have nothing to do with it?
I absolutely think you're absolutely right. Eric was doing that deal with Kiss.
Yep.
They were going to do something very big. It would have put Dale over the top. I actually think in my head that they were going to shoot for somewhere down the line the Demon versus Hogan.
Wow, that's crazy.
Almost going back to, WrestleMania 1, where it was Wrestle and Rock connection.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my theory on that. But
because Bischoff always talks about how if he was there, he wanted to do the year 2000. Obviously, he's gone in September of '99, so he wasn't able to do it. He wanted to do the Kiss, Millennium kind of like not a concert, if you will, with the wrestling show, which would have been pretty cool. Obviously, kicking off 2000.
well, I mean, I don't remember that, but that just kind of puts more of a stamp of maybe on my idea, right?
Yeah.
Who would you put him against? The biggest show of the year? Of probably that would have been the biggest crossover show that WCW ever had. So who would you put the Demon with?
True. Yeah, you got to put him with somebody big
Yeah,
name.
yeah.
The thing is, too, people always like, oh, Kiss in '99, 2000, were they still popular? I saw them in 2019, sold out show. Crowd was going nuts here in New Jersey. About 15, 16,000 people sold out. Then I was just looking for tickets for December for MSG. It's supposedly, quote unquote, their last show ever. 2 shows in a row. Tickets are going for $500 a piece. So people can say they're not popular. They weren't popular. They were dying down back then. They had a huge following, and obviously they're mainstream to the nth degree.
And haven't they sold the most merchandise of anybody in history?
They probably have the most too, but yes.
Yeah.
And everyone always says Vince kind of took Gene Simmons' ideas of kind of the way to market, way to get stuff out there. Hey, you needed this. Hey, you need a Kiss shampoo. You know what I mean? Like all this kind of stuff that Vince would do for the WWF. A lot of people think, even though other people think that he doesn't know who Kiss is, doesn't know who Gene Simmons is, a lot of people think either Vince himself, or the marketing department obviously saw what they were doing.
And, it's funny. Last year, I went to see Ace Frehley play the mainland, right? Took the ferry. It was the town that I get off of the mainland, And they were there. And he had a packed house. It was a small, very comfortable, very famous theater. I think there was 1,200 people there. And they were selling merchandise like crazy.
I can believe it. I mean,
Yeah.
throughout the year, just the amount of Kiss stuff that's out there is nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I could just see either Vince himself or somebody from WWF marketing, then looking at it, be like, wow, T-shirts, foam hands, this and that, and the pyro, and like everything, because they were doing it first.
Right.
Now we just almost take it for granted that everyone just automatically does all that stuff, marketing-wise.
Right.
Hey, let's license this, let's license that. Really, they're one of the people that kind of were the first to do that, first to market, really, to do a lot of that stuff.
And I think you're 100% right. I mean, they blitzed. It was like before I mean, you'd see maybe a Star Wars T-shirt right out after a movie. They had a whole blitz campaign, and it was a constant campaign.
It would be cool if Ace came back for the end there here in December with Kiss. Apparently, he's not gonna. I don't know why, but I guess they just don't like each other. Gene and Paul and Ace.
I heard a rumor, and I don't know if this has any credence to it, but he's going to show up. What's the other one that was?
Peter Chris?
Yeah, they were going to show up and do a couple of songs.
Whoa, that'd be
That's
awesome.
yeah, that's what I've heard. So I don't know, but I'm sure. You know, you can be pissed off, but if you're going to get some money, big time money.
Yeah, especially this kind of money. Oh my God, they're going to sell 20,000 tickets at $500 a pop. I mean, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
and I think it would be good. It would be good for them.
It would be awesome. I like Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, but I mean, come on, you got to have Peter Chris and Ace. That would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
But the topic at hand today, we're going all the way back to 1986. We're talking about Great American Bash 1986. Of course, the Great American Bash actually became quite a tour here in 86. Last week, we really talked about 85 and what it was as far as just a single show. But this is kind of a touring show here. So the cities toured in 86 were July 1st in Philadelphia, PA, July 3rd in Washington, D.C., July 4th, Memphis, Tennessee, July 5th, Charlotte, North Carolina, July 8th, Charleston, West Virginia, July 9th, Cincinnati, Ohio, July 10th, Roanoke, Virginia, July 12th, Jacksonville, Florida, the 18th, Richmond, Virginia, the 21st, Fayetteville, North Carolina, the 23rd, Johnson City, Tennessee, 25th, Norfolk, Virginia. August 2nd would be in Atlanta, which was the last show, and then the show we're covering today was the second to last show, July 26th in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the Greensboro Coliseum. So big 13-city tour here for the Great American Bash and for Dusty Rhodes. Where are you in 1986?
I'm in Florida. I'm also working for Mario Savoli in New England. I'm doing a few shots for Southwest, shoot a few shots for World Class, and I work for Victor Keone's company in Japan, a couple of tours. So I was traveling.
And even a little bit for CCW down there, Continental, having a little bit of a feud with the Armstrongs, wrestling Brad, Steve, and even the Bullet, and even Bullet Bob.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Wonderful territory. Wonderful territory.
What do you think about the tour itself? Like Dusty's like, okay, this is a big enough thing here. Let's do a whole tour of the Great American Bash.
Well, when I went up there, I guess it was in 89 full time or 88.
Yep.
What was the last year Crockett had? 88?
88. Yep.
That's when it was in Detroit. It was me and Murdoch against Dusty and the Sheik. Wasn't that tour like 52 days or 48 days?
They eventually, like every house show, became a Great American Bash tour. It was nuts. Yes.
Yeah. When we went to the West Coast, listen to this. You know, you wonder why they lost money, the Crockett's?
Yes.
Okay. They had a private jet and they had a very large prop plane. I used to know the name of it, but anyway. And they also had guys flying commercial, correct? When we went to the West Coast, we flew on the first leg of the tour. I got either see the backwards. We either went to I believe we went to the Northwest first before we went to California, but I might be wrong. We flew to Spokane. We flew back to Vegas, spent the day in Vegas. We flew to Seattle, came back to Vegas. We flew to San Francisco, back to Vegas. Oakland, back to Vegas. LA, back to Vegas. San Diego, back to Vegas. And Vegas itself. They're cranking up a plane. Do you know what I'm saying? A jet plane to go back there. Wouldn't it have been cheaper on them to have commercial flights?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, that was when we were in Vegas, when I'm in my hotel room, and I think it was Janie Ingalls said, you got to come up to Jimmy's suite. And I'm walking up, getting in the elevator. Here comes JJ. I said, what are we going to go up here for? Execution? He said, I have no idea. That's when Jimmy told me and JJ that JJ was going to take over and I was going to help him. And they were going to Hollywood and make movies.
Wow.
Hello, McFly.
Yeah.
They were going to Hollywood and make movies.
I guess that was the grand plan there, but obviously that didn't work out.
But I'm asking you.
Yeah.
You're a baseball fan. You're gonna get a franchise. You're gonna start a franchise in Pottsville.
Yeah. No. Nope.
I mean, how bizarre was that thinking?
Very little off base there, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like we're trying to get a movie right deal. We're going to make movies. I don't know, but anyway.
Crazy.
Because all that tour that I was on that year, and Ric Flair, brother, he did an incredible job. Incredible. He was wore out when it was over. But everybody, my generation always says it was sold out to the rafters. Well, it was pretty, I would say that it was 80% sold out, close to capacity every night. It just got fire.
When you look at that, though, it's like, isn't nobody seeing the expenses and stuff? Like of the flights and everything, or they just think the money's going to keep coming in forever?
Well, here's the thing. What I never understood, the story, and if you listen to Rick and JJ and the late great Dusty, and David Crockett, Jimmy Crockett, people that were involved, finally, their accountant came to them and said, we need an infusion of money worth $2 or $3 million in the hole. How could that have happened? How could they have not known?
Right. And they had 2 jets, right? So, I mean...
No, they had a jet and a big prop plane.
Oh, okay.
Like 20 people. But they were cranking up the jet from Charlotte to go to Greenville, 120 miles away.
Right, just drive. Yep.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, how did they not know? Why didn't the accountant come to them and said, hey, boss, this month we lost $200,000. Why did he keep it to himself? Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Was there something amiss there?
Bad communication for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wonder if they were just thinking like, man, the money's just going to keep rolling in forever. Just keep spending without even thinking about, hey, we might be losing here.
But JP, your job as an accountant.
Right. You got to manage the money. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Crazy. And if you think about it, I mean, WWF is dominating at this point.
Oh,
As NWA is getting weaker and weaker, Hogan keeps getting stronger and stronger in the WWF, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, WrestleMania 1 was a huge success. WrestleMania 2, moderate success, of course, but they did run it in three different cities at one time: New York, Chicago, and LA. It just shows you the power of the WWF and Hulkamania, and obviously Andre the Giant and Piper in one town. So, I mean, they were just rocking and rolling. And then forget about it, 87, they blew up with Hogan versus Andre.
Right, right.
So Dusty as Booker here, it's going to be interesting because a lot of people are complaining that he's going to be back on top of the card for this tour, and obviously the big show here is the one we're talking about, and he's going to be in the main event, a steel cage match versus Flair for the NWA World Title. What do you think about Dusty at the top of the card? I know we talked about it briefly last week, but what do you think about Dusty at the top?
He deserved to be there. He deserved to be there. Him and Flair were like later on in life, Sting and Flair. Put them down, you're going to get a number and you're going to draw a house. Now, he made sure he had great support too, Dusty. But that feud with Flair, they were diametrically opposed in their interviews, right?
Yep.
I mean, the hard time interview comes from the Flair angle, right?
Yep.
Everybody says that's the greatest interview of all times. Well, it was brought up because of Flair. I'm sure Flair's interview preceding that had to be brilliant too. I think I've seen it one time, but it's never gotten the play that the Hard Times interview has.
It's funny though, the back and forth Flair, my shoes cost more than your house, like all that great funny stuff. But you think that would get Flair booed more? But I think that people genuinely thought that was hilarious. Like a lot of the fan base did like what Flair was saying, even though he was being very egotistical, ripping Dusty, saying that he's rich and Dusty's poor, and going back and forth. But I think a lot of people did kind of not resonate with Flair, but they just loved what he was saying. They just thought he was hilarious.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I ever saw really heels being admired. I think it was Greensboro when there was like 8 guys on the front row in glasses. And they were college kids, you know what I mean?
Yep.
They were emulating Rick. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at Rick now. I thought about this. It's funny you mentioned that. I thought about this last night. Hurd tried to get rid of Rick in '89. Correct?
Yep.
He's bigger now after a near-death experience than he was then. He hangs around with Snoop Dogg, Mike Tyson, gives speeches to football teams. I mean, he's more relevant now than he was in '89 when they were trying to get rid of him.
Pretty nuts. It seems like every year he gets more popular and more popular. And then the documentary was nominated for one of those Emmy Awards. So, I mean, he just keeps getting, nominated. They didn't win. They were nominated, but he just keeps getting more popular and more popular by the year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and people you wouldn't think, Bill Burr, right? The comedian?
Yep.
I mean, he did a whole, watch along with that documentary on Rick. He's been on Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy.
His popularity is nuts. But here in '86, do you think a lot of the fan base knew Dusty was the Booker, or not? Or is that just the smarter fan base knew he was the Booker?
No. I mean, there was no internet. There was only the Observer or maybe a couple of others, but I'm sure they weren't a million people back then get them. So how would you know?
Yeah, it just seemed like I don't know. Maybe some of the fans seemed to be a little bit negative. Not really in '86, but eventually in '87 and stuff, and definitely '88. They were definitely starting to be a little bit more negative towards him being on top of the card and things like that. Like remember when in '88 when he turned the Road Warriors heel and they beat
Yeah.
him up and they cheered for the Road Warriors. So I mean, it just seemed like maybe some of the fans were starting to maybe catch on or starting to maybe hear through the grapevine that maybe he was booking himself on top.
I don't believe that.
No, okay.
And I'll tell you why. Yeah, some people found out, that were going to the towns giving the guys a ride to the airport. You know what I mean? This is how I surmise how shit happens. The guys are in the car, oh, you're getting a ride to the airport. Hey, can you stop at the convenience store so I can get a 6-pack before I get to the hotel or the plane or whatever? And then that goddamn Dusty, they pick up. Then the next one tells that one. But it was a very low undercurrent. But here's also the thing. You go to the wrestle matches for a year in your town when they were in there every week, right? You can figure stuff out pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Where you were as a kid, Bruno's going to have 3 matches with this one. He's going to lose the first one in disqualification. He'll lose the second one on a count out. Then they're going to call for an Italian stretcher match or a death match or false count anywhere, and Bruno goes over. The next heel, he'll only have one show. You know what I mean? You can follow the pattern back then a lot easier, I believe.
Definitely, for sure. So for this one at the Greensboro Coliseum, there's really no commentary available as far as announcers, but of course the ring announcer, somebody we've never talked about, the legend Tom Miller, who's just I don't know one of those great deep voices. He always was great. Do you remember Tom Miller, the ring announcer?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Any thoughts and recollections of him?
Great voice, but I'm trying to think of his last name. The two greatest ring announcers I ever heard. One was a guy named Griffin down in Pensacola, and the other one was Frank Friedman in Miami. If you want to listen to Frank Friedman, go to Ali and Sonny Liston #1. Frank did all the boxing for Chris Dundee, and he did all the wrestling for Eddie Graham. Fabulous. Great guy. I'm sure he was in the boys club,
Mm-hmm.
Dressed immaculate. Great announcer. And that's what is a lost art, I think, today. The great announcers.
It's definitely been a loss, especially with no Howard Finkel around. We know that's been obviously a huge loss for many years.
Yeah.
I thought you might say Jimmy Lennon Jr. That's what I thought you might say, great announcer.
Well, I never was around Jimmy, but, we had Michael Buffer.
Oh, Buffer, yes, great as well. Yep.
Yeah.
So let's start off Great American Bash 86th, of course, the 12th out of the 13th day of the tour here, July 26th. Greensboro, Steve Regal defeats Sam Houston in a singles contest. Of course, we're not talking about Lord Steven Regal. We're talking about Mr. Electricity Steve Regal getting the win here. What do you think about Mr. Electricity Steve Regal?
I thought he was a very good hand. I thought he was an excellent technical performer.
What's up with that nickname? Does that really suit him? Does it really fit him, Mr. Electricity?
I'm sure you said the first question was who came up with it?
Yeah, like where does that nickname? Does he make up that nickname himself, Mr. Electricity?
He came from Vern, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sure they gave it to him.
Do you think that it fits him?
Not really. Do you?
No, not at all. It's like a
No.
weird nickname. Like Mr. Electricity would be like Ultimate Warrior or something. You know what I mean? Like somebody like that would be Mr. Electricity to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes we look too into too minutia shit. You know what I mean? Like Miss Electricity. You know, it could have been Mr. Toyota. Sometimes back in the day, they just stuck ridiculous shit on people. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
And it wasn't the him coming up with the idea, and then it's reinforced by the announcers because the announcer is getting an airflow from the promoter. Keep calling Mr. Electricity, and then the promoter's trying to tell him, "Oh, when you do something, make a comeback, come explode and do a drop kick." You know, there was not a lot of heavy thinking sometimes put into what they were saying. There was
What do
a
you
lot
think?
of drabble from
Yeah.
promoters.
What did you think about Sam Houston? Obviously, the younger
Oh,
brother of Jake the Snake Roberts.
great, great, great worker. You know, second generation, great worker.
The next matchup, Black Bart and Conga the Barbarian, aka the Barbarian, defeated Denny Brown and the Italian Stallion here. This is obviously not that Denny and Italian Stallion don't get a lot of wins, but not necessarily top of the card guys for Crockett, even though both were pretty good in their own right. But obviously, Black Bart and Barbarian going over. What do you think about those guys as far as Stallion and Denny Brown, downtown Denny Brown?
I mean, Denny was junior heavyweight champion of the world a couple times, right?
Yes. Yep.
Uh, Denny could work. I saw him have some great matches with guys his size. Uh, this is like when they came to the ring and Barbarian and Bart came to the ring. Do you think people had thought any chance that those two were going to beat Bart and Barbarian?
No, definitely not.
I mean, sometimes I wonder. I used to wonder this back in the day when I worked for Vince McMahon Sr. His lower card, you know, it was so predictable. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Big time.
Why would you make this so predictable? I don't know. Keeping guys' jobs, I really don't know. So
I know it's technically a tour. It's technically kind of like a just a house show match, technically, really, because with all like with all the guys on the card here, that's just the general feeling of it. But Denny Brown did wrestle Flair a few times, obviously, on TV. Not long matches, but he did have a long TV match against like guys like Arn and Tully and 6 man against Flair, Arn and Tully. So I mean, he's around and he's on TV. He's a good hand, he's a good worker, but never like top of the card guy, like you said, junior heavyweight champion of the world
yeah,
twice over. Yeah,
yeah, and he's maybe 200 pounds. And at the time, everybody was 240, 250. And he did a hell of a job then he as a junior heavyweight champion. But this was falling out of favor, that junior heavyweight belt,
yep.
which at one time was a very important belt.
As we started moving to not land to the Giants per se, but a lot of the bigger guys for
Right.
sure. When you look at Italian Stallion, I think a lot of people would say, not an enhancement guy, but he's always like early of the card, top of the card, or excuse me, bottom of the card type of guy. With him, I think his most famous thing that he's really done, maybe train the Hardy Boys. I mean, obviously, that's kind of been something that's always been out there and said about him. Maybe controversial with some of the stuff that happened with him and the Hardy Boys, but that was always a big part of people knowing who he was because of the Hardys.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so he would always do WWF matches. I know WCW too, obviously, enhancement guy, but he would be the guy that would pull him and Gary, not Gary, I'm sorry, George South would bring all the guys together, and you bring him WWF, and hey, who do we have for the taping, and is he experienced? Okay, we'll put him in there with Razor Ramon or Sean Waltman or whoever. But he was the guy that gets the car, gets the hotel rooms, and he brings whoever he's training up with him, and they're kind of basically not an example of what he's trained, but they're his guys. He's responsible for them.
Okay.
So basically, what we're looking at is a little bit of trouble with him. Maybe that, as the Hardys say, their point of view, he was taking too much money from the bookings, but his point of view was he brought them up there whether he had to rent a van or get their hotel rooms. So that's why he was taking more money than maybe they were getting out from the agents. So what the Hardy Boys ended up doing was booking themselves as they got more familiar with the agents, and the agents would just bring them in without Stallion.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I mean, it depends on what side of the
Fence you're on.
yeah, what side of the fence you're on for sure. But obviously, Gary Sable, the Italian Stallion, has his story, and the Hardy Boys have theirs. And obviously, they were in WWF for a long, long time.
Right, right.
So the next matchup, Manny Fernandez defeats Baron von Raschke with Paul Jones in a loaded glove on a pole match here. What do you think of that gimmick? Loaded glove on a pole.
Well, I saw that where it originated. Southeastern Championship Wrestling in Knoxville and Don Carson coal miner's glove match. That's where that started.
When you look at that, you think by 86, that's way out of like, I don't know, out of style. I know eventually WCW would do a big one, Coal Miner's Glove in 1992, Halloween Havoc, Jake versus Sting. But do you think like that style of match is way out of out of depth here? I know it's 86, but is that really a good match?
Okay, let me ask you this. Where are we located, most of these towns?
Southern places, Greensboro, southern. I guess you mean like people know about coal miners' gloves and.
We're in West Virginia.
Yep.
I mean, we're playing to the great late Roddy Piper's deal. He comes into Cleveland with an Indian shirt on, right?
Yep.
He comes to Boston with a Patriot shirt on. I mean, come on, we're playing to a hometown base. You know what I mean? And in '86, I mean, the last two preceding presidential elections, one of the main things was independence from oil, being independent from oil. So, I mean, you were bombarded about coal every night if you watch the news.
Yep.
They're talking clean coal, so it wasn't out of the realm. Does it matter? Did it add a couple of seats? I don't think so, but they're trying to spice it up as much as they can.
Yeah, I know it's like a mid card match, a mid card feud, and I know
Yeah.
Paul Jones' Army is bringing in, pretty much past his prime. Baron von Raschke as he's winding down his career, and maybe giving a little bit of a push to the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez. But it's one of the things where I was just curious, like, is that really a good gimmick match? Maybe I'm looking at it from a younger fan's eyes.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you this: how old were you back in '86?
4. I was only 4 years old.
Okay, you can't even remember what was going on back then, right?
Right, hardly, yeah.
Yeah. So, the '80s were a wide open. Of all the decades I've been around, that was the craziest. There was always some kind of catastrophe happen, just like today.
Yep.
But yeah, he was just trying to pepper the card up. I don't think it drew two people.
So the next matchup is another gimmick match. We've got Wahoo McDaniel defeating gorgeous Jimmy Garvin with Precious in an Indian strap match. A little bit of an interesting match. I still kind of like this match today. A little bit different from the Coal Miners Club. I like this match because I don't know, it's one of those stiff, not dangerous per se. I mean, it could be safe, but it's just one of the matches where it definitely seems like, wow, like it makes the sound with the strap, and it just sounds like, man, it's a painful match.
And having Wahoo hit you with it, it was painful.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny too. I don't know if you can get away with it today. He even hits Precious in the ass a few times with the
Yeah.
strap. I don't know if you can get away with stuff like that today.
I don't think you can. You know what I mean? I don't think you can. And no one gave a shit back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know, and I understand that the world's changing, and I think it's a good thing. But do you think that we'll be able to have comedy at all in the next couple of years?
Man, I don't know, because I was watching some old Norm Macdonald stuff, and people were like, "Oh, you can't say stuff like that anymore." Like that wasn't even that long ago with some of his stuff. I just thought he was great.
Yeah, and he was brutal. But when I'm saying he was brutal, brutally funny. But
Yes.
you
Yep.
could never say that today.
No. Nope.
So are they going to have comedy in the next few years?
I don't know. It seems like not, because if you're a comedian, you got to be worried about every damn word you say.
And I also thought about this. This is getting off the subject a little, but it kind of relates to what we was talking about. All these comics are now doing podcasts with one another, right?
Yep.
And they laugh at each other's shit like it's ridiculous. Who's the guy without the Bert? The guy without the shirt, Bert.
Oh, Burt Kreischer, yeah.
Brother, he's got a canned laugh, right? I mean,
Yep.
have you seen him on some of those podcasts where he looks like he's going to die from laughing?
Yep.
It's not that funny. It's like they're trying to work so much now to be funny. That's why I'm asking you if we'll have comedy. The world's changing rapidly.
Yep, big time.
Yeah.
So this one, it's funny with, like, if you think about it, it's like a mid card match, but they do have the Indian strap match. Both guys are bleeding. It's a bloody match, typical of Wahoo, right? I mean, he would blade a lot, but he ends up getting the win. It's like almost like the signature of Wahoo, right? Besides the chop and the stiffness, is the blood.
Yeah, I work quite a bit with Wahoo in Florida. And yeah, it was chop you to death, juice, and then you get juice on top of him. So, I mean, he was an excellent performer. But, brother, I saw him and Valentine have matches. They couldn't punch each other any harder.
Wow.
I mean, couldn't have kicked each other any harder. Johnny's chest would look like he had fallen on a fireplace. It was crazy.
So the next match is another gimmick match, and with a lot of these matches, you're seeing them kind of again. Like this match also happened in Charlotte. The Wahoo match happened in Charlotte. So they'll do a lot of reruns and almost a very, very similar match. Is that normal for house show matches, so to speak? Kind of just rerunning through the same match over and over?
Brother, back then, this is how crazy it was. This is how the internet has changed everything. The same match in Miami would be, we'll say, Rick and Dusty in a no DQ, 25 miles up the road, 30 miles up the road in Fort Lauderdale. It'd be Barry Windham against Rick in a no DQ. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're advertising Ric Flair 2 title matches. Same week. One
Yep.
on Wednesday, one on Friday. No one seemed to catch on. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's the way it was back then. Easy to kind of get away with that for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as far as this, we're going to have a taped fist match. A lot of gimmick matches on this show. So it's Ronnie Garvin with Wahoo versus Tully Blanchard, who is the national champion, with J.J. Dillon. It's basically a taped fist match. It's kind of like a normal wrestling match. It's all wrestling is legal, but you must have your fist tape, of course, and there will be a series of 3-minute rounds. You must knock your opponent down for a count of 10. No TKOs. So they, obviously you go through a bunch of rounds here, and basically going to have 4 rounds, and Tully Blanchard is going to end up getting the victory over rugged Ronnie Garvin here. So maybe a bit of an upset considering who can punch harder than who.
Yeah, Tully was one of the main heels at that time. They were going to take care of Tully.
Obviously, I know you're technically cheating, but Tully does cheat to win too. I mean, he uses a weapon instead of knocking him out when the ref's not paying attention. So, I mean, there is a way that he wins, and it still makes Garvin look good. But it's just one of the things where, if you really were to look at it in real life, Garvin had hands of stone legitimately and giant bear claws of hands, and Tully is like the chicken shit heel. So this, you would think, would favor Garvin in the match.
Well, did you say Garvin had huge hands?
Oh yeah. You don't think so?
Where did you see that?
When I met him, I booked him a bunch of times. I met him. When I shook his hand, for how tall he is, his hands are way bigger than like a normal person of that height. Like he's probably what, 5'8"? Yeah, you never thought that? I always thought like, and I shook his hands like, wow, he's got it's like strong.
Well, he grabs you hard.
Well, yeah. But for a guy that small, not small, but he's probably your height, right? He's probably 5'8" ish, right?
Yeah, he's
So
5'8"
I figured my hand would squish his, but no, he was pretty.
Because he grabs your hand.
Yeah.
He got that. Yeah, that's what I wanted you to say.
Yeah.
He had that fucking
grip
handshake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got hands of stone.
Yeah. Hands of stone.
Tully, obviously, chicken shit heel, but very top of the card. Tully Blanchard, 4 Horsemen, gets the win here. There. Then the next matchup is a number 1 contendership match for the NWA Tag Team Championship. The Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson defeated the Minnesota Wrecking Crew of Ole Anderson and Arn Anderson. I'm sorry, actually, the match ends up going to a draw. You would think that the Rock and Roll Express were going to win, but by the time the 20 minutes are through, it ends up going to a draw as the Rock and Roll Express are almost about to get the victory there. So what do you think about that? A non-finish here for a number 1 contendership match for the NWA Tag Team titles.
Why?
Yeah, you tell me.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
They're trying to keep both teams strong for some reason on like a house show?
That isn't what you're advertised, though. Advertised, so winner's going to be the number 1 contender.
Yep.
You never should have had them walk in the ring because you didn't accomplish anything.
Very weird.
Be too smart.
Yeah, I'm not real sure on that booking there for sure. Not sure what the particulars were, but yeah.
What they were doing. Try and protect both of them, but you can't protect everybody. And this is your blow off one of your main matches? No, I don't think so. Sorry.
Next up, the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant with Manny Fernandez versus Paul Jones with Baron Von Raschke in a hair versus hair match. And Paul Jones was also with Shaska Watley as well, part of the Paul Jones Army. This is, again, we talked about this when we're talking about Great American Bash 85, so a year later. I mean, this is the feud that never ends. This is like every different big show, they have a different gimmick. Every year, it seems like they're feuding. I think this feud literally between Jimmy Valiant and Paul Jones might have went on for 4 years. I mean, that's one of the craziest things of a feud ever. I know it's a mid-card feud, and it's not nothing crazy, but, man, they just kept feuding all over the territory, and Paul Jones ends up defeating Jimmy Valiant here in the hair versus hair match. What do you think about this feud that'll never die?
Jimmy's one of my favorite people. Wonderful person. Really. Have you had any interaction with Jimmy?
Yeah, interviewed him a few years ago. Yeah. Yep.
What you see is what you get. Really a sweetheart of a person. Good man. And hey, he's been around since the mid 60s and he's still performing. God bless him. So I was on some towns with Jimmy when the Crockett's were running 3 towns, and he was working with Ivan Koloff.
Yep.
I wanted to be on his shows because I was in the semifinal with Ray Stevens in most of those shows, right? And they would run smaller shows. They would run like I can't remember the name of the town. It's right outside of Myrtle Beach, and that place was all his places were packed with Ivan. He was a great draw everywhere he went. Memphis, uh, Crockett's, Atlanta. Jimmy drew money. So, yeah.
It is crazy that that feud literally went on forever. Just it's
Yep.
crazy to look back at it. Like, wow. I mean, people were still kind of into it. I mean, they just came up with different angles and everything else. But after the match, Sandy Scott makes Jimmy Valiant sit down. He actually has a tearful hug with Manny Fernandez, and he sits down and he does get his head shaved. So they showed a little bit of a different side of Jimmy Valiant there. Not joking around. You know, he was
Yeah.
pissed.
Yeah. Well,
So Nick,
he was a great heel, too. So,
yep.
that's something people forget about.
So next up, Magnum TA defeated Nikita Koloff with Ivan Koloff. This is just a singles match for the NWA United States Championship. Well, a part of the best of 7 tournament for the NWA United States Championship. The title's vacant until the end here, but this is match number 4 as Nikita went up 3-0, and this would make it 3-1. So maybe a lot of people were thinking clean sweep here, but think again as Magnum TA gets the win. What do you think about the best of 7 feud between Nikita and Magnum?
I gave that idea to Dusty.
Wow, really? What was the thought process?
Come on, figure that one out, please. Tell me.
You're a big baseball fan. You love baseball, so you're thinking
Exactly.
of best of 7. You're
Yeah.
thinking Red
World
Sox,
Series.
Mets. Yeah, you're thinking World
Yeah.
Series. Yep, yep. You're thinking the Reds. You're thinking
Yeah.
whoever. You're thinking of the best of 7 baseball
Yeah. The
World Series. Yep,
Cardinals.
yep.
Uh, the Mets. So.
Great idea because man, this was a success. The great chemistry between these two, great matches,
I
and
used
all.
it later on in WCW.
Yeah, Benoit and Booker T.
Yeah. And I think I did it with Ray and
Hoovy.
Who?
Ray and Hoovy.
No, Malenko.
Ed. Oh, okay. I know they tried it again with Ray and Hoovy, but Ray got injured, so it never got off the ground. And actually, WWF copied and did Benoit and Booker T again in the best of 7. So, I mean, obviously, that's a great idea, great angle. I love it, especially for certain guys, and this is no different because Nikita goes up 3-0, then it goes back 3-3, and then Nikita wins the 7th match in this. But this is only match 4 where Magnum gets the win. But I thought that was great booking too. That Nikita won in 7 when Magnum almost made the comeback.
That's what Dusty and I threw that at Dusty. I don't want to say I did tell him to do it, okay, but when we were talking about how to do it, I said, let Magnum come back down 3-0. This is before the Red Sox did it, right? And we swept.
Yep.
I said, everybody's going to think when they get to 3-3, Magnum's going over. I said, we'll dump more heat on Nikita. And that's what he did. That got heat. Everybody thought, he's going to win it.
Great idea, great booking, really, really smart here, and great chemistry with these two. Because man, Nikita was over and Magnum was over as a babyface, one of the top guys.
Yeah. Think about this. I thought about this the other day. Ric Flair's run has been very strange, okay? Rick was supposed to, David Von Erich was supposed to get the belt, correct?
Yes.
He died.
Yep.
Magnum was supposed to get the belt.
Yes.
Had a wreck. The other Von Erich,
Kerry?
Kerry, he was supposed to get the belt for a lot longer. Didn't, right?
Yep. Very, very
Jimmy
short.
Garvin, at one time when Ronnie got the belt, they were going to let Jimmy Garvin have a run with that belt. But he got gout. Barry was supposed to get a run with that belt, and he fell out of favor with Dusty, right? Ted DiBiase was supposed to get a run with the belt, but supposedly he told some people that he was on the short list to get the belt. When they found out about it, that was it. He's been touched in a lot of different strange ways.
Would have been interesting, obviously, if Magnum didn't have the accident, because you can almost do Magnum Flair after Magnum wins the title to a feud, but you could go back to Nikita, because Nikita technically beat him in the best of 7, and people would be
Yeah.
buying into Nikita being the next champion, because hell, he already beat him for the U.S. title. So that would have been really cool as well.
And where I was going with this, those guys I mentioned, you could have drawn money with any mix and match program with those guys. You see what I'm saying?
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah.
Next up, co-main event, so 2 steel cage matches to finish off the show. The Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal with Baby Doll, who's going to be wrestling with them, and then Paul Ellering at ringside defeated the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, and Jim Cornette in a 6-man steel cage match. Man, talk about heat. Cornette and the Midnights, the epitome of heat, and then the babyface team of Baby Doll and the Road Warriors.
Yeah. Yeah.
You like that 6-man cage match with Baby
No.
Doll and Cornette?
No.
Why not?
Why not?
Yes.
Okay. I love Jimmy. I love Baby Doll. But the Road Warriors are special. Are they going to add anything to the Road Warriors or take away? Do you see the Road Warriors coming down? Close your mind's eye.
Yep.
Do you see the Road Warriors coming down with Baby Doll? Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't work.
Okay. Then Jimmy Cornette in a match with the Road Warriors.
He'd get destroyed.
So does it help the Road Warriors or hurt them?
I'm with you. I got you.
When you got something special, you got to protect it.
Yep. The only thing, though, is obviously I think he's going to steer clear of them, and that his boys, the Midnight Express, are going to take their lumps. You don't think that adds to the Midnight Express at all? That they're kind of hiding Cornette and making the crowd go nuts. Like, you don't think that helps them at all as far as heat, or they don't need that kind of heat?
If they wanted to do that, they could have had the Road Warriors get 2 minutes with Jimmy or 5 minutes. Whoever wins. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Putting Jimmy in there, he's in danger for his life. Correct? So
I would think so with those 2 guys, yeah.
Yeah, so if he's not getting killed by the Warriors, how long was the match?
I don't have an exact time, but I think it was less than 10 minutes.
Less than 10?
Yeah.
Okay, Jimmy Cornette, we'll say 10.
Okay.
Jimmy Cornette's in the hands of the Road Warriors for 10 minutes and nothing happens. and Baby Doll. You got a girl with the Road Warriors. That's just me.
All right, I'm with you. It's
Yeah.
a little bit odd booking. I do love the Midnight, so I love me some Midnight Express,
Oh,
especially
I love them too. I
Bobby and
love them
Dana
too. But don't you think the match could have been better if it was just the Midnight and the Road Warriors?
in the cage, way better. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So next up, we have the main event of the evening: Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair in a steel cage match for the NWA World Title. And guess what? Dusty Rhodes is going to go over and become the NWA World Champion as he defeats the Nature Boy Ric Flair. What do you think here? Ric Flair losing the NWA World Title to Dusty Rhodes.
I think it was time. I mean, they're going to continue on this feud, right?
Yep.
You got to give Dusty a win, right? I mean, how many times can you go to the well and not beat Flair?
Right.
So it was time for Dusty to win. I don't know. I think it was right.
Do you think Flair had any problem?
No, he knew he was going to get it back. You know, how long did it take before he got it back?
So he would only be champion, technically, Dusty Rhodes, for 2 weeks. So
Okay.
14 days. Then they have a house show in St. Louis, Missouri on August 9th, and Flair wins the title back. So he only held the title for 2 weeks.
Okay,
Dusty.
so they knew he was getting it back. He knew he was getting it back. You know, it was good for Dusty to get it.
That's my only thing when people say, "Oh, he booked himself on top." Yeah, if you look at his title runs, 30 days, a week, 2 weeks. I mean, he's not having the longest title runs in the world here. I mean,
Right.
his title runs are pretty short. I mean, if you if you count the Midnight Rider one, I mean, God, that was one less than a day. But his one reign in '81 was only 88 days. I mean, his other run in '79 was for 5 days. This runs for 14 days. So not necessarily booking himself to be on top for a long period of time.
No, no. And it was the right thing to do for business. Yep.
Of course, Flair would then go on to hold the belt for 412 days. And before that, before Dusty beat him, Flair was the champion for 793 days. So Flair obviously is getting the long run and Dusty's getting the short run.
Right.
Opposite of WWF, their booking where Hogan would get a long run and let's say Andre would be champion for a day. You know what I mean? Like, or even before that, Sheik was a champ for 28 days. Definitely different philosophy in the NWA versus WWF.
Right. Right.
So you have no problem with Dusty going over here, being the world champion
Absolutely not.
in the steel cage. I don't either because it's like I said, it's only 14-day run, and then Flair gets it back and holds it for over
Right.
a year. So,
And he
and
is
then
Dusty Rhodes.
yep,
Yep.
he was pretty over, and the crowd definitely was loving the fact that Dusty won the title here. What are your thoughts of just as we were going through this part of the tour, '86?
What do you mean? What are my thoughts about?
Like, did you like this overall? Did you think this is a good show? Because
Yeah.
just looking at it, and if you look online stuff, a lot of positive reviews about Great American
Yeah.
Bash 1986 for sure.
Yeah, I'm positive for it. You're not. I mean, you're not running these towns weekly anymore. So you want to bring the complete circus to them. I thought it was a good show.
And I love going back. You can watch on YouTube. They have clips of this on. Dusty rolls him up for the cradle for 3. Keeps Flair strong. I mean, wins the match, but the crowd goes nuts for the finish. So I love that. And they were pretty crazy for all the stuff. Even the cage match with the Road Warriors, not really my cup of tea as far as putting Baby Doll and Cornette in there, but the crowd was eating a lot of it up. So awesome crowd kind of makes up for any shortcomings of the show for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think
So
it was a very solid show.
And the baby faces came out at the end to celebrate with Dusty, making it a big moment. The crowd was eating that up too.
Yeah, yeah.
So good stuff here. If you can find it with obviously there's going to be no commentary really, but if you could find some stuff of it online, definitely check out YouTube. I suggest finding Dusty and Flair though. That good stuff. Great American Bash, July 26th, 1986. So let's hit the plugs. You follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website tmptempire.com. Kevin, what do you got?
I'm going to be at Conrad Thompson's soiree this weekend. So I'm looking forward to meeting all those people down there in Huntsville. So, and that's about it.
Nice. Top Guy weekend. Very cool stuff that Conrad does every year for the guys, for the top guys, if you will. So,
It's called Top Guy Weekend.
Top Guy weekend, I think he calls it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. I didn't hear you correctly. Yeah,
Yep.
great.
Good stuff from Connie. So thank you,
Yeah.
everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. We'll see you next week, folks.